What's up, noobs? I am literally diving headfirst into the metaverse, so the rest of this video is going to be filmed entirely in VR. Let's go. So, I am here at Skachby's HQ on spatial.io, and helping me on the camera is myself. And I may not have legs, but there are two of me. We're going to be talking to Dalton Skach, aka the Great Skachby today, who is an expert on the metaverse and virtual land, because he is a serial entrepreneur whose previous career was in commercial real estate, and now he's launching a new company called Life in Meta. So, Dalton, thanks for hosting. And tell us about your background, how you made the transition from real estate to the metaverse, and what Life in Meta is all about.
Well, thanks for coming to my space, Derek. So, when you talk about my background in real estate, I started off in commercial real estate doing consulting, sourcing off-market acquisitions for large private equity groups all throughout the United States. And after I did that for 3 years, I started a new real estate firm, which was a luxury real estate fund. And that's when I really got into the startup and entrepreneurship world where I was raising money, hiring people, signing partnerships, and becoming just a serial entrepreneur. And after I stopped doing that company, I was looking for my next opportunities, working in venture capital, but also seeing what other industry or project I might want to get into. And when I learned about all of the huge use cases within the metaverse industry, I decided to jump in with both feet and commit most of my time to learning and experiencing and creating relationships in this industry. Within the cryptocurrency space, there's 14,000 cryptocurrencies, and probably of those 14,000, maybe, only 200 or 300 have actual value and that will last a long time, and the others will not. Same thing with most of these NFTs. A lot of them have value and others are just hustles. So with the metaverse space, we have all of the ones that are popular right now: Decentraland, the Sandbox, Crypto Voxels. And so I created Life in Meta to help our users learn more about all of these different metaverse worlds that are in use and under development.
All right, I usually consider myself to be an early adopter, but I am clearly late to all this stuff. And from my perspective, I see a huge bubble in NFTs. But as I've been diving into this stuff more and more in the last few weeks, I am discovering that there will be real use cases, and there's huge implications for the technology underlying NFTs. So it's been hard not to hear about NFTs usage in artwork, but can you tell us a little bit more about what other use cases besides artwork there are for NFTs?
So when you're talking about what makes an NFT valuable and what I look for in NFTs, is the number one thing that makes, I think, most things valuable is community. When you look at the community of New York City, when you look at the community of Harvard, look at the community of Bored Apes, look at the community of Decentraland, right? You look at all of those things, and that's what makes them valuable. If there were 100, let's say, unemployed homeless people that owned these Bored Apes NFTs, they would have no value. So that's one of the first things, is community. And the next thing is the roadmap, right? If you were to join, for instance, Harvard, this prestigious university, but they had no plans for you to do anything with any of the other students, that would also decrease the value. You'd go, hey, what am I here for? What did I pay this tuition to get into this for? And so that's two things I look for, is community and roadmap with NFTs. So you look at Bored Apes, you look at Meta Legends, and a few others. And so that's what gives it value. And one of the top things you can look for community is looking at their Twitter, but also you can see on Twitter that people can buy followers willy-nilly. So the next thing that you really can't buy or obtain easily is Discord, Discord members. So you go on Discord, you see that a project has over 100,000, over 150,000 community members, and tens of thousands of them are active. And you go look in these Discords and see who's talking, what they're talking about, and you learn more about the team behind the project, and seeing their background, seeing their domain experience, one, but also seeing that they've started businesses in the past, because that is what gives you the higher probability or likelihood that this team will go out and execute on that roadmap and all the promises that they made to the community. And that's what gives you a good sense of going, hey, I can put my money into this NFT project and it has a really good chance of appreciating in the future.
So, yeah, I mean, you make some really good points there about the reputation and the makeup of a community, because part of the reason why art is one of the areas that took off first is because the value of art is very subjective. And you could argue there's no intrinsic value unless someone deems it to be so. And in the case of NFTs, like the Bored Ape community, as you point out, it's not a bunch of homeless people. It's people that have a lot of clout in the real world. So the fact that they're jumping into this is really what backs the value, has gotten the attention, has essentially made this whole community go to the moon. So I think
Sure.
it's been a great accelerator. A lot of people are exploring, and to your point, like there's 14,000 different altcoins out there, and not many of them are going to make it. It's a lot like the early .com boom, where everyone with a .com was able to IPO and their stock went up to triple digits, but it's still early days here in the metaverse, and only the strongest will survive.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think the ones who are able to demonstrate real world value in their environments and within their communities are really going to be some of the strongest that survive. So what do you see right now in metaverses are examples of transactions that create real world value?
So one of the examples that I could use is one of the top metaverse real estate investment companies in the world, which is Republic Realm. And they've spent millions of dollars buying land in Decentraland and then also developing on that land a shopping center that was based off of an actual shopping center over in Japan. And then what they did is they leased out space in this shopping center to real life, real world retailers to display their products. So now when people are in Decentraland and they're walking through the shopping center, they can walk in and see all the clothes, in this case, of this retailer. And if they like one, they can click on it, choose it, try it on. And when they buy it, not only will it go to their avatar as well, be purchased by their avatar and be used by their avatar, but it will also be sent to them in the real world as well. So that's one of the use cases for e-commerce, I would say.
So are their avatars, can they be customized to match the measurements of your own body?
There are some new metaverse worlds and companies coming out right now, such as MetaHero and Everdome, where they actually have this full-sized body scanner. It's probably, I think it's like 15 feet by 15 feet, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. But you walk into the scanner, it's got thousands of cameras that shoot you instantaneously, and pretty much they can get your body down to the pixel or pore of your skin and upload your entire body into their metaverse world. And so that one's still under development. It's being developed by a very impressive entrepreneur out of Eastern Europe that has done this before in terms of being an entrepreneur, creating a business, growing it, and selling it. So that one has a good probability, I think, of succeeding. And they're also going to be bringing these devices that I just mentioned, these Everdomes, one to the United States and one to Europe as well. Right now, the only one that's available is in Dubai. And I think they're going to be doing their first 100,000 scans in 2022.
Wow. That is going to be awesome because, I mean, right now, the process of finding clothes that fit, you've got to go to a tailor and then they've got to measure you with measuring tape. And I can't imagine that would be as accurate as hundreds of cameras digitally measuring you down to the pixel. So,
well, you think about it and you think about, hey, how much does Nike spend throughout the world on their real estate, right? On Fifth Avenue and literally everywhere throughout the world. They spend tens of millions, if not billions of dollars on their real estate to display their clothing and their apparel and their shoes. But when you go into any of these, they only have maybe a few dozen of these products. Now imagine going into the Nike metaverse world and there being 100,000 shoes, and you could try them on and customize it and buy what you want from Nike. And then not only will it give it to your avatar, but they'll also send it to you in the real world so that you and your avatar are on brand.
That's awesome.
I mean, think about that for Nike,
So
think about that for Amazon, think about that for all of these luxury retailers or fashion brands, and think about like it being you're in New York City where there's not a lot of great shopping centers around here that are like close by or like large or easy to access. The best one is over in New Jersey, and so rather than have to get in your car or take an Uber to go all the way to Jersey, you could just throw on your VR headset, choose from hundreds of different metaverse worlds of your favorite retailers, and go and visit those places and try on the clothes yourself from the comfort of your home.
yeah, it's interesting. It's possible that one of the greatest reductions in carbon emissions could be the introduction of the metaverse to the masses because people will stop driving as
Absolutely.
much. As long as we can get over the hurdle of crypto mining creating so many emissions.
Sure, sure. And that will go down. I mean, this community, you have the smartest people in the entire world that are working in the crypto, NFT, and metaverse community. You're seeing Microsoft, Google, Apple, Facebook, Nvidia spending tens of billions of dollars over the next decades and be hundreds of billions of dollars in the metaverse industry. And so, yeah, carbon emissions will go down. You think about it too. Bill Gates just came out and said that by the year 2024, most people are going to be switching from having their Zoom calls to having their calls like this, like we're having right now,
Yeah.
to their VR
We're 3 years
workrooms.
early.
Yeah, because on one hand there's remote working, and on the other hand there's going into the office. And what the metaverse does is bring those both together. So I mean, imagine not having to go into the office all the time, driving to and from, especially in places like California. And imagine being able to live from anywhere in the world, but feel like you are still connected with your colleagues and coworkers and family and friends, just like we are right now.
Your point about NVIDIA reminds me of a good segue I have. The environment here is nothing to really shake a stick at. I mean, let's be honest, this looks like a PS2 game. And PlayStation 2 came out in 2000. So, yeah, we've got the smartest people in the world working on these environments, and it's about 2 decades behind gaming graphics right now. So, I've got 2 questions. One, why are the graphics so and 2, do you think gaming will make huge inroads to create lasting metaverses because they've got a head start in graphics?
Yeah, well, I mean, the top two gaming platforms in the world, which is Unity and Unreal Engine, that's what most of these companies are building their metaverse worlds on, right? In Web 2.0, all of the websites were being built on Java and CSS and HTML. And in Web3, these websites will still have websites, but they'll be built with Unreal Engine and Unity. This is, again, I understand that it's not the top of the line. Like, it could feel more real, but they already have applications and games that make this, look like elementary school. So they're already out there. It's just about, I think, implementing them. And Intel came out and said, a lot of people's computers, even, they don't have the capacity or the graphics cards to get to that level right now. So there needs to be a 1000x improvement in computing capacity in order for us to get to that real life feeling.
That actually won't take too long, given Moore's Law has kind of fallen by the wayside, and computing power has way more than doubled every 18 months in the last 2 decades.
Yeah, yep.
But to your point, it is a barrier to entry because not everyone has high-end graphics cards. Not everyone has Oculus headsets. It's going to be a while before you get mass adoption. And I think that is one of the barriers for Virtual Land to really take hold and stabilize, which I mentioned in my previous video. So what do you think it'll take for new challengers to take over the incumbent metaverses and really establish stable value?
Sure. And again, it comes back to, I would say, community and usability. And so one of the things that I like, for instance, about the metaverse platform that you see behind me, or the NFT you see behind me, which is Meta Legends, right, is that what they did first is they created this incredible brand and character of 12,345 Meta Legends that they then sold to their community of 200,000, Discord members, and they sold out within 24 hours. And what they're doing first is creating this community. They're also going to be creating a Meta Connect app, which is going to allow Meta Legends, owners of these NFTs, connect with each other in the real world. So there'll be a map where you can share your city location and see what other Meta Legends are around you, and you can DM them and say, hey, we're both Meta Legends, let's meet up. So that kind of creates that bond and that social experience before they've even created their metaverse world too. And so then they intend to create their token as their governance token and a currency token. And then they intend to introduce their metaverse world called Meta Life, in which all of the 12,345 Meta Legends will be able to enter it, and they'll be able to create more NFTs of other different kinds of citizens within this metaverse world that can come interact with us for gaming, for buying, building, selling land. And the experience, when you compare it to a Sandbox or Decentraland or CryptoVoxels or Somnium Space, the graphics are on par with Star Wars, whereas you saw with Decentraland, it's on par with Legoland, right? And so building that community, having that roadmap, having that story, making it VR compatible. And one of the other things that they intend to do is reach out to some of these top movie producers and try to turn Meta Legends and Meta Life into a either TV series or movie series. And so you can imagine, with all of this coming together, if they were able to implement all of that, how many people would be coming out and trying out the Meta Life platform and using it to socialize and interact with people all over the world. So that's an example of a project that can easily compete with the already existing ones. But, in the future, there won't be thousands of metaverse worlds that people use. I think that there will be a few dozen that have most of the traffic, and that's what's going to make the real estate and businesses and advertising and everything like that and the tools and NFTs valuable in those platforms. So it's really about the community, the experience, and making sure that they're not just creating an NFT or just creating a virtual environment just because, but they actually have a purpose behind it.
Got it. So real estate in the real world derives its value from the community, just like in metaverses, its density,
Sure.
and ultimately how many people want to be there. And there's definitely an analog. However, real estate is so much more stable in the real world because technically we've got 100% adoption. Every single person is on some sort of real estate at all times of their lives. Whereas in the metaverses, you can choose between whatever metaverses are popping up to spend your time there. So that naturally leads to the volatility we see in pricing. So I think we're a long ways away from stable virtual land prices. But tell us a little bit about what creates virtual land value today, because in some of the leading metaverses, we're seeing some insane valuations in the millions of dollars. So why is that happening?
Sure. And, I hate to keep on saying this, but it really just is true. And it comes back to that community, right? It's, when you go into the Sandbox, a lot of the reasons why a lot of these plots are selling for so much is because you have a lot of the top venture capital firms in the world, top influencers, top celebrities in the world that are using the Sandbox, creating their homes there, buying yachts there, and creating games there and spending their time there. And that is what is creating a lot of the value right now for the Sandbox and Decentraland. They have all of these top people, right? It's like people want to go hang out with Snoop Dogg and live next to Snoop Dogg, or they want to go live in Bel Air because that's where all the celebrities and venture capitalists and whatever else it might be, successful people live. That's why a lot of people live in New York City, and they're willing to pay more to live in New York City than, let's say, New Mexico, because of that community. And
So I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here because I hung out a little bit on Decentraland and it was pretty sparse for the most part. I actively looked for the crowds and they were mostly hanging out in the casinos. You mentioned the community is made up of a lot of early entrepreneurs, VCs, and celebrities. So it's not your typical day-to-day people. It's like if I built a new city and as a developer, I just hung out with other developers there. So are people really buying into the future valuation and the potential, or is there real value there right now that's making up the majority of the pricing?
Well, also you need to understand understand that, you go into Decentraland or even other platforms, and with their computing power, they're only able to show you a certain amount of avatars, even in Horizon worlds. When I go play games, it's really 3-on-3, and it really doesn't get a lot higher than that. It goes up to 12 people or 15 or 20 people. But with the amount of computing power and infrastructure you need in place to really show you that there's thousands and tens of thousands of people running around interacting, it's just not there yet. The infrastructure is not there yet, right? So, and I understand a lot of people are going, hey, why people in Decentraland? This is a terrible game, right? It keeps on lagging. The graphics aren't great. The best thing that Decentraland has going for it are the publicity with the partnerships and people that are having events there in Decentraland. The next thing is their token. So, most of these cryptocurrency tokens in these metaverses or in general are driven a lot by greed and speculation. You really can't, put a valuation on it. But then also Decentraland, right, is decentralized, and it's on the blockchain. And one of its biggest advantages is that it's not Facebook, right? That's what a lot of these blockchain metaverse developments have in common, is that they're transparent and you don't have to worry about people taking your stuff or monitoring you like you would with Facebook.
Facebook really does seem to be getting off on the wrong foot with users.
Sure.
Oh,
And
now they're
right,
listening to me.
I know that's so funny. I know right now we're both on the Meta Oculus Quest 2. And as we say this, right, like our headsets are going to turn off here pretty soon. But that's another thing, right, is that like people will want like private encrypted VR headsets in the future, so that we don't have to worry about creating a Facebook account and putting on the Oculus that's owned by Meta Quest 2 when we're going and interacting within the metaverse.
Yeah, I think we've got a long ways to go before we hit a level of privacy and security that the masses are comfortable with.
Yes, but
right,
one of the things I should mention too is that this year in 2021, there were more Oculus Quest 2 headsets sold than there were Xboxes.
Holy cow.
That's a good indication, and you can see why it's one of the most popular gaming systems. You and I have both played on the PS5 or on Halo, but when we put on our Oculus Quest 2, it was like, I have to tell everybody about this. This is a crazy experience. You go play Beat Saber, Horizon Worlds, or Population 1, and you're just going, oh my gosh, this is insane.
Yeah, it is something else. So to the noobs out there, if you haven't tried it, give it a shot. It is, you'll see where the value of the metaverse is headed.
I always say this, in order to understand the metaverse, you have to experience the metaverse. You have to get an Oculus Quest 2. You have to watch Ready Player One and just do your research. You have to go watch Travis Scott, his concert in Fortnite. All of these things will make you appreciate and see the future use cases for this technology, for education, for gaming, for entertainment, for socializing, and it'll make you want to jump in with both feet, just like you and I both have.
So one more question on Virtual Land. Are you a buyer right now? What's your take?
I'm not a buyer right now. No, I just haven't found the right platform. It's one of those things where you're looking at it, and when you're buying real estate, you want to be buying in the metaverse worlds that are similar to, for instance, New York City or Los Angeles or Dubai, London, Hong Kong, whatever it might be, where there's going to be a lot of people and they have a unique advantage. And so I haven't found that yet. And that's why I created Life in Meta, is to really look at all these different metaverse worlds and track them and look at their teams and roadmaps and look at what they're doing and see which metaverse world will I want to spend most of my time, money, and effort in the future. When you're choosing your metaverse world in the future that you want to go socialize and spend most of your time in, it's going to be as important as you moving from, for instance, New York City to London and needing to understand the whole demographic and experience of London. You would want to know what currency they use, what language they speak, where you're going to live, what you're going to do if you have friends and family there. And so right now, when I talk to most of my friends and family, they don't own a VR headset. They don't have a MetaMask wallet. and they don't have any NFTs. So it's still super, super early.
Yeah, and then if you traverse metaverses, you can't necessarily take all your digital stuff with you either. So that's another barrier.
Yes.
So looking to the future, do you think the top metaverses of the future exist today or are yet to be created? And what do you think a typical hour in the metaverse will look like 10 years from now?
I don't think they exist today. What I'm really getting excited about is spatial VR, the one that we're in right now. I've already had, this interview, but also other meetings in this space. And I've met with spatial VR architects and I've seen their spaces and what they can really do with them. And it's super impressive. I mean, these architects are creating these spaces where you're just like, oh my gosh, they look incredible. I would love for one of our future interviews to be in one of these spaces where we're on the beach next to a 200-meter yacht that doesn't even exist, but it's one of the most beautiful and unique yachts you've ever seen. So spatial VR, I mean, they've created this experience where people can create their own environments, and the best environments can be sold and monetized, and that's where people will be going and spending a lot of their time. But I don't think that the top metaverse exists right now. I think that it's going to be built by, whether it's Meta, which I don't think it's going to be the top one. I think a lot of people will be using Meta's or Facebook's, metaverse platforms in the future. But you also have like Epic Games, you also have Microsoft, Google, Apple, and a lot of other companies all over the world that are just starting up right now and addressing all of the problems that people see with these large corporations. So I think we'll see in the next 3 to 5 years a few dozen of these metaverse platforms show themselves and get some serious adoption.
You actually just reminded me of one more question I wanted to ask about virtual land. In the real world, if I want to develop a building, I have all this pre-development work. I have to do legal stuff. I have to line up my cap stack. I have to find an architect and engineers and then hire a GC to actually build the bricks and sticks. In the virtual world, it is drastically different. I could literally just download a building and plop it on a piece of land. So, what do you see the major components of virtual land development to be?
Well, it's not that easy. It's not in a lot of the, in the sandbox and in Decentraland, even with Republic Realm, it wasn't like, Republic Realm just bought a piece of land and then they just, willy-nilly created their shopping mall. They had to hire developers and content creators to literally get the specs of this mall and develop it using the tool systems on these metaverse platforms in order to create something as realistic as to the real one as possible. So there's a lot of like effort and time and money that does go into building a good development, right? Similar to the real world.
Right.
I mean, you could buy a piece of land and put up, 4 planks of wood and say, "Oh, I have a home." But it's not going to be something that people want to go to and they want to visit and experience it. And so it does take more than that. And like, I guess similar to the real world too, is that if you buy more land with more air rights, you can also better zoning is that you can start building up and creating new things, new architectures and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
also, right, if you were to build a shopping center or an office building, then you have to go get tenants for it, right? So I kid you not,
Right.
Republic Realm has people on their team that their sole job is to go out and get tenants for their properties. 2 of the top luxury real estate brokers in the world, Oren and I forget his brother's name, but they're both out of New York City and Miami. It's they both went to the University of Colorado Boulder, so Sco Buffs, but they partnered with Republic Realm, and what they're doing right now is they were speaking with all of their clients that are billionaires, multi-hundred millionaires, and they were talking with them about creating a metaverse world, a metaverse space for these billionaires to interact. So you can be a, super wealthy person from Russia or United States or Brazil and be a part of this community and literally put on your VR headset and go interact with other super successful people and not have to worry about security and stuff like that, right? And only getting to meet one of them. Like you could like go have like a mixer with having the the most influential and smart and wealthy people in the world, and they don't have to get on their private jets and come to fly to anywhere. They can do it in virtual reality. So that's a cool project that I'm excited to learn more about. I'm sure it's going to be super, super private, but nonetheless, it'll be cool to hear what they do.
It's funny because real estate brokerage itself still probably will not be disrupted, but the way they are conducting business is evolving with the technology.
Yep.
All
You're
right,
good.
thanks again, Dalton, for having me and inviting me to your lovely space here, Skachbees HQ on spatial.io. So you can go ahead and look that up and visit his space, and you can hang out here as well. So looking forward to doing a lot more in the metaverse, virtual real estate, maybe building some virtual buildings and having their digital twins here. But yeah, I look forward to the future, and let's keep in
Let's do
touch
it.
and chat some more.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to the next time seeing you, Derek. Have a good one.